We should probably practice. Min-Jun's voice was barely a whisper as he stood in the doorway of what used to be his bedroom. The room he'd grown up in. The room he'd sold along with everything else. Zara turned from the mirror, her dark eyes catching his. She'd changed into a deep burgundy dress that hugged her curves in ways that made his throat go dry. For his aunt, for the pretense. That's what he told himself. Practice, she asked, her American accent cutting through the tension. The kiss. My aunt. She'll expect us to be comfortable with each other. Affectionate. The word hung in the air between them like smoke. Zara's lips parted slightly. Right. The kiss. She crossed the room toward him, each step deliberate. Her perfume hit him first, something warm and expensive that he definitely couldn't afford anymore. When she stopped inches from his face, he could see her chest rising and falling just a little too fast. So how do we? She started. Min-Jun's hand found her waist before his brain could catch up. Her skin was warm through the thin fabric. Like this, he murmured, leaning in. Their lips met softly at first, hesitant, testing. Then something shifted. Her fingers curled into his shirt, pulling him closer, and he responded by deepening the kiss, his other hand sliding up to cup her face. This wasn't practice. This was 3 weeks of stolen glances and accidental touches finally combusting. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, neither spoke, because speaking would mean acknowledging what just happened, and neither was ready for that. The doorbell shattered the moment. She's here, Zara whispered, her lips still inches from his. She's early. Min-Jun's voice was rough. He stepped back, adjusting his collar, trying to look like a man who hadn't just kissed his fake girlfriend, like his life depended on it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back. Back to where this whole twisted story began, 3 weeks earlier. The notification sound was wrong. Min-Jun stared at his phone screen, watching the payment confirmation flash across it. 200 million won. The exact amount he and the buyer's agent had agreed upon for the house. His family's house. The house his grandfather built with his own hands in the hills of Busan. See? All there, man. The agent, Kim, something or other, clapped him on the shoulder. Pleasure doing business with you. Beside him, Shanice smiled, that beautiful, devastating smile that had convinced him to give up everything. Her dark skin glowed in the afternoon sun streaming through the window, and Min-Jun felt that familiar tug in his chest. Love. Or what he thought was love. Baby, we did it, she said, wrapping her arms around his waist. Now we can start fresh. Just like we planned. He'd met Shanice 8 months ago at a club in Haeundae. She was visiting Korea, she said. Fell in love with the country. Fell in love with him. His family saw through it immediately. She's using you, his father had said during their last conversation. Can't you see? She doesn't love you. She loves what we have. You don't know her, Min-Jun had shot back. Then prove us wrong. Walk away from your inheritance. If she stays, we'll welcome her. If she leaves... His father had let the sentence hang. Min-Jun had made his choice. He'd walked away from the Park family fortune, from the shipping empire his great-grandfather built, from the penthouse apartments and the fleet of luxury cars. He'd kept only this house, the one property his grandfather had left directly to him, beyond his family's control. And now he was selling it. For Shanice, to start their new life together. The agent left first, promising the transfer would clear within the hour. Shanice kissed Min-Jun's cheek and said she needed to run to the store. Champagne, she said with a wink. We're celebrating tonight. He should have known. 1 hour became 2. 2 became 4. By evening, Min-Jun was calling her phone. It went straight to voicemail. He checked his bank account and his blood turned to ice. The transfer had bounced. Insufficient funds in the sender's account. He called the agent. Disconnected number. He called Shanice again, again, again. Finally, a text message came through. Not from Shanice. From a number he didn't recognize. Thanks for the house, babe. Split was 60-40 like we agreed. Currently enjoying Paris. Don't bother looking. S. The phone slipped from Min-Jun's hands. She was gone. The money was gone. The house was legally transferred. And he had nothing. He spent the next 3 days in a haze, used his last bit of cash to hire a private investigator who confirmed what he already knew. Shanice and Agent Kim had left the country together. Paris first, then possibly Prague. They'd done this before, the investigator said. Different cities, different marks. Min-Jun couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't go back to his family. How could he? They'd warned him. His father, his mother, his aunt Sun-hee, who'd always been his favorite, who'd looked at him with such disappointment when he'd announced he was choosing Shanice over them. "You're making a mistake, Min-Jun she'd said softly. Love makes us blind, but eventually we have to see. He'd called her a meddling old woman, told her to stay out of his life. The shame was suffocating. So he did the only thing he could think of. He went back to the house. His house. Except it wasn't his anymore. The new owner hadn't moved in yet, according to the neighbors he'd carefully questioned, while disguised in a face mask and cap. Some American woman who'd bought it sight unseen through her lawyer. Paid in full, cash deal. Min-Jun found a spot in the small forest that bordered the property's eastern edge. From there, he could see the house through the trees, his bedroom window, the garden his grandmother had planted, the gate he used to swing on as a child. He slept on the ground, ate nothing, drank from a stream. On the third day, a black Mercedes pulled up to the gate. She stepped out, and Min-Jun's breath caught. She was black, like Shanice, but that's where the similarities ended. Where Shanice had been all calculated charm and practiced smiles, this woman moved with natural grace. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and she wore a simple white blouse and jeans. But she looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. She surveyed the house with her hands on her hips, nodding to herself. Then she made a phone call, laughing at something the person on the other end said. The sound carried across the yard, warm and genuine. Min-Jun's stomach growled so loudly he was sure she'd hear it from 50 meters away. She went inside. Lights flickered on room by room. His house, her house now. He must have blacked out because the next thing he knew, it was morning. Day 4. His body was shutting down. He was dehydrated, starving, and his vision kept swimming in and out of focus. He had to do something. But what? An idea formed through the fog in his brain, desperate, insane. But he had nothing left to lose. He'd knock on the gate, beg for work, any work, just to be close to the house, just to have somewhere to stay while he figured out how to fix this disaster. Min-Jun pulled himself to his feet, nearly collapsing. His legs shook as he made his way out of the forest, across the street, to the gate he'd passed through 1,000 times. He raised his fist to knock. The gate swung open. The Mercedes was pulling out. Min-Jun saw her face through the windshield, her eyes widening in alarm as he stumbled forward, directly into the path of the car. "Wait," he managed. Then everything went black. Voices, distant at first, then closer. "Vitals are stabilizing. Severe malnutrition and dehydration. Lucky you found him when you did." Min-Jun's eyelids felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. He forced them open anyway. White ceiling, soft sheets, the smell of something clean and medicinal. A private room. Hospital. Oh, thank God. He turned his head. There she was, the woman from the house. Up close, she was even more striking. High cheekbones, full lips, concerned eyes that were currently fixed on him. "Don't try to sit up," she said, moving closer. "Doctor said you need to take it slow. Where? His voice came out like gravel. You're in Busan Medical Center. You collapsed in front of my car 3 days ago. You've been unconscious since. 3 days. He'd lost 3 more days. I'm Zara, by the way. Zara Williams. She settled into the chair beside his bed. And you are? This was it. The moment where he had to decide, truth or lie. The truth meant admitting he'd sold her a house he had no right to sell, that he'd been living in the woods spying on her, that he was a complete and utter failure. I'm looking for work, he said instead. Zara studied him with those sharp, assessing eyes, the same eyes that probably closed million-dollar deals without blinking. Looking for work, she repeated slowly, in a $2,000 suit. Min-Jun glanced down at himself. Shit. He was still wearing the Tom Ford suit he'd put on to meet the agent, the suit he'd bought back when he thought he was Park Min-Jun, heir to a shipping empire, not Park Min-Jun, the idiot who lost everything. It's borrowed, he said. Uh-huh. She didn't believe him. He could see it in the slight quirk of her eyebrow. But something else flickered across her face, too. Curiosity, maybe. Or pity. He wasn't sure which was worse. Look, Zara said, leaning back in her chair. I don't know your story, and honestly, I don't need to know. But you collapsed in front of my house after clearly not eating for days. So either you're running from something, or you're running toward something. Either way, you look like you could use a break. Your house? Min-Jun's heart rate picked up. He forced his expression to stay neutral. Just bought it. Beautiful property up in the hills. Traditional architecture. Amazing view of the bay. She smiled and something in his chest twisted. I'm renovating it, turning it into a home base while I expand my business in Korea. What kind of business? Import-export. Luxury goods, mainly. African textiles, art, jewelry. There's a huge market for it here, but nobody's tapping into it properly. Her eyes lit up when she talked about work. Min-Jun recognized that look. His father had the same expression when discussing shipping routes and trade agreements. A nurse came in then, checking his IV and vitals, giving Zara a pointed look that said visiting hours were ending soon. When they were alone again, Zara stood. The doctor says you can be discharged tomorrow. You have somewhere to go. The honest answer was no. No family he could face. No friends he hadn't ghosted when his family cut him off. No money for a hotel. I'll figure something out, he said. Zara pulled a card from her purse. Thick, expensive stock with elegant lettering. This is my number. Call me when you're discharged. I meant what I said. I'm renovating the house. Could use someone to help with the heavy lifting, cleaning, that sort of thing. Pay is decent, and there's a guest house on the property. It's yours if you want it. She was offering him a job. In his own house. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Why? The question escaped before he could stop it. Why what? Why help me? You don't know me. Zara's expression softened. When I was 23, I was sleeping in my car in Detroit, building my first business from nothing. Someone gave me a chance when they didn't have to. She placed the card on his bedside table. I believe in paying it forward. Plus, you look like you're not afraid of hard work. The suit might be borrowed, but your hands have calluses. She was right. Years of his grandfather making him help with the garden, insisting that a park should know the value of manual labor, even if they had people to do it for them. Think about it, Zara said, heading for the door. She paused at the threshold. Oh, and whatever you're running from, eventually you'll have to face it, but maybe you need a soft place to land first. Then she was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of her perfume and a business card that felt like a lifeline, or a noose. He wasn't sure which yet. Min-Jun called her the next morning. 3 days later, he was standing in the guest house of his former home, unpacking the few items Zara had taken him to buy from a second-hand shop. Jeans, t-shirts, work boots, clothes that fit his new reality. The guest house was small but comfortable. His grandmother had used it for her visiting friends from church. Now it was his, purchased with his own family's money by a stranger who'd taken pity on him. The irony was almost funny. Almost. "Min-Jun," Zara's voice called from outside. "You settled in?" He stepped out into the late afternoon sun. She was in the main garden, examining the overgrown rose bushes his grandmother had planted. She'd changed from her business attire into fitted jeans and a loose tank top that showed off toned arms. "Don't look. Don't even think about it." "Yeah, all set," he said, walking over. "What do you need me to do?" "These rose bushes," she gestured at the wild tangle of thorns and neglected blooms. "Previous owner clearly loved them, but they haven't been maintained in months. Think we can save them?" Previous owner. He'd been the previous owner. These were his grandmother's roses. "Yes," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "They just need pruning, fertilizer. They're stronger than they look." Zara glanced at him, something unreadable in her expression. "You know about gardening?" My grandmother taught me, before she passed. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. I'm sorry." Zara's hand briefly touched his arm, a gesture of comfort that sent an unexpected jolt through him. She pulled back quickly, as if she'd felt it too. "Well, I'm glad you're here then. These roses deserve someone who knows how to care for them." They worked in silence for a while, Min-Jun showing her how to identify dead wood, where to cut, how to check for disease. She was a quick learner, asking smart questions, not afraid to get dirt under her manicured nails. "You're good at this," she said, sitting back on her heels. "The teaching thing. Patient." "You're a good student," she laughed. "That's a first. My business partners would tell you I'm terrible at taking direction." "Business partners don't know everything." "No," Zara said softly, looking at him with those dark eyes. "I suppose they don't." The moment stretched. Min-Jun felt something shift in his chest, a dangerous warmth that he immediately tried to extinguish. "No, not again. Never again." He stood abruptly. "I should start on the fence. You mentioned it needed repairs." If Zara noticed the sudden distance, she didn't comment. "Right, tools are in the shed." The days fell into a rhythm. Min-Jun would wake early before the heat settled over Busan. He'd work on the house, fixing, cleaning, restoring. Every nail he hammered felt like a small act of reclamation. This was still his home, even if the deed said otherwise. Zara was often gone during the day, meeting with suppliers, visiting potential retail locations. But in the evenings, she'd return, and they'd end up in the garden or on the porch, talking while the sun set over the bay. He learned that she'd built her business from scratch after dropping out of college, that she'd been engaged once to a man who'd wanted her to give up her dreams and be a proper wife, that she'd walked away and never looked back. "Love makes you soft," she'd said one evening, sipping wine while he drank water. He couldn't afford to cloud his judgment with alcohol. "Makes you compromise pieces of yourself until you look in the mirror and don't recognize who's staring back." Min-Jun had nodded, understanding perfectly. She never asked about his past, and he was grateful for that. But sometimes he'd catch her watching him with a curious expression, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. The sparks started small, a brush of hands when they both reached for the same gardening tool. Her laugh at something he said, genuine and unguarded, that made his stomach flip. The way she'd pull her hair up when she was focused on work, exposing the elegant line of her neck. Him, shirtless one afternoon while fixing the roof, catching her staring before she quickly looked away, a flush darkening her cheeks. Min-Jun told himself it meant nothing. She was his employer. He was living a lie. And he was damaged goods anyway, his ability to trust completely shattered by Shanice's betrayal. But his body didn't care about logic. One evening, 2 weeks into his employment, they were in the kitchen. Zara was attempting to cook Korean food from a YouTube tutorial, and it was going terribly. "This doesn't look like bibimbap," she said, staring at the smoking pan. Min-Jun couldn't help it. He laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. "Here," he said, moving beside her. "You're cooking it too hot. Lower the flame." He reached around her to adjust the stove, suddenly aware of how close they were. Her back was almost against his chest. He could smell her shampoo, something coconut and vanilla. Zara turned her head slightly, and their faces were inches apart. "Min-Jun," she whispered. His phone rang. They jumped apart like teenagers caught by parents. Min-Jun grabbed his phone, his heart pounding, and his blood went cold when he saw the name on the screen. "Aunt Sun-hee. I have to take this," he muttered, stepping outside onto the porch. His finger hovered over the decline button. He should ignore it. He'd ignored her calls for months. But something made him answer. "Aunt Sun-hee. Min-Jun ah?" Her voice was warm, concerned, with no trace of anger. "Finally, I've been so worried." "I'm fine." "Are you? Because your mother told me about the house. About that girl." So they knew. Of course they knew. The Parks had eyes everywhere in Busan. "I don't want to talk about it," he said tightly. "I'm not calling to say I told you so, Min-Jun. I'm calling because I love you. Because you're still my nephew, even if you're being a stubborn fool." Despite everything, his throat tightened. "Aunt Sun-hee. I'm coming to visit you." His heart stopped. "What?" "The house. I have the address. I'm coming next week, Thursday. I want to see where you're living. Make sure you're taking care of yourself." "No. No, you can't. It's not a request, Min-Jun. I'll be there at 3 o'clock, and I expect to meet this new girlfriend of yours." "What girlfriend? The one you're living with?" "You think we don't have friends in that neighborhood? Mrs. Kim saw you and a beautiful black woman working in the garden together. Looking very cozy," she said. Min-Jun's mind raced. "Aunt Sun-hee, it's not what you think." "I hope it is what I think. I hope you've found someone genuine this time, someone worthy of you. I'll see you Thursday, Min-Jun. Don't try to run. I'll find you anyway." She hung up. Min-Jun stood frozen on the porch, phone still pressed to his ear. This was a disaster. His aunt would show up, discover he was working as hired help in the house he'd sold, realize he had no girlfriend, and the entire humiliating truth would come out. His family would know the full extent of his failure. "Everything okay?" He turned. Zara stood in the doorway, backlit by the kitchen light, concern etched on her face. "My aunt," he said slowly. "She's coming to visit, next Thursday." "That's good." "No." Min-Jun ran his hand through his hair. "No, it's not good." "Why not?" This was it, the moment where everything would unravel. "Because," Min-Jun said, his voice barely above a whisper, "she thinks I still own this house, and she thinks you're my girlfriend." Zara's eyes widened. "What?" "I need to tell you something. The truth. All of it. And after you hear it, you'll probably want me gone, but—" He took a breath. "This house, I used to own it. It was mine, and I lost it because I was an idiot who fell in love with the wrong person." The words came spilling out then. Shanice, the con, the fake agent, his family's warnings, the shame that kept him from going back, living in the forest, collapsing in front of her car. "So, you see," he finished, unable to meet her eyes, "I'm not some random guy looking for work. I'm the previous owner who was too ashamed to tell you the truth. And now my aunt is coming, and she thinks I still live here, and she thinks you're your girlfriend." "Yes." Silence. long enough that Min-Jun finally forced himself to look at her. Zara's expression was unreadable. That's quite a story. I understand if you want me to leave. I'll be gone before... I'll do it. Min-Jun blinked. What? I'll pretend to be your girlfriend for your aunt's visit. You'll what? Zara crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. I'll pretend to be your girlfriend for the visit. Min-Jun stared at her like she'd spoken in a language he didn't understand. Why would you do that? Because, Zara said, stepping closer, I know what it's like to have family judge your choices, to feel like you have to prove something. And because... She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. You've been working hard. You made a mistake, yeah, but you're trying to rebuild. That takes courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. A small smile played at her lips. Besides, it's one afternoon. How hard can it be? Min-Jun let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. You have no idea what you're agreeing to. My Aunt Sun-hee is intense. She'll ask questions, personal questions. She'll want details about how we met, how long we've been together, what our plans are. So we get our story straight. Zara pulled out her phone. We have 6 days. That's plenty of time to become a convincing couple. Zara, this is insane. Probably, she agreed, but you helped save my grandmother's roses. Consider this payback. Something in the way she said it made Min-Jun's chest tighten. She knew. Somehow she'd figured out those were his grandmother's roses, and she was doing this anyway. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. We have work to do. She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the house. The touch sent electricity up his arm, and from the way her grip faltered slightly, she felt it too. Come on, fake boyfriend. Time to study for the biggest performance of your life. They spent the next 6 days preparing. Zara was methodical about it, approaching the deception like a business strategy. She made lists, created a timeline, grilled him about his family's dynamics. Your aunt's favorite color? Purple. Your mother's maiden name? Yoon. First place we kissed? Min-Jun's mind went blank. The garden, Zara said, writing it down. Under the cherry blossom tree. At sunset. I was wearing that blue dress, and you told me I looked beautiful. The image was so vivid, so specific, that for a moment Min-Jun could almost believe it had happened. Right, the garden. But the preparation sessions were torture for other reasons. They had to practice being comfortable with touch. Zara would take his hand while they walked through the house, critiquing how natural it felt. She'd lean against him on the couch while they watched TV, adjusting her position until it looked effortless. Your aunt will expect us to be at ease with each other, she'd explained. Couples who've been together for months don't think about physical proximity. It just happens. What she didn't account for was how Min-Jun's body would react to her proximity, how the smell of her perfume would make his thoughts scatter, how her laugh would make him forget why this was all pretend. And he caught her staring too, when he'd roll up his sleeves to demonstrate how a boyfriend would help her cook, when he'd absent-mindedly tuck a strand of hair behind her ear during one of their practice sessions. We can't do that, she'd said, pulling back. Why not? Couples do that. Not that easily. That was too natural. Her voice had been flustered, which was strange because Zara was never flustered. The real problem started on Tuesday night, 2 days before the visit. They were going over their story again, sitting on the couch in what was once his living room. Zara had changed after work into shorts and an oversized t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger like this, more vulnerable. So when she asks about love, Zara said, consulting her notes, what do we say? Min-Jun tensed. What do you mean? I mean, will she ask if we're in love? And if so, what's our answer? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications neither of them wanted to examine. We should probably say yes, Min-Jun said carefully. Anything else would seem suspicious. Right. Yes, makes sense. Zara was fidgeting with her pen, not meeting his eyes. So we love each other. In this story. In the story? But we don't actually. No, of course not. Because that would be stupid. Completely stupid, Min-Jun agreed. I mean, we barely know each other. 3 weeks. That's nothing. Nothing, Zara echoed. They sat in silence, both staring at the notes that suddenly seemed very interesting. Zara, Min-Jun. They spoke at the same time, then laughed awkwardly. You first, Min-Jun said. Zara set down her pen, turning to face him fully. I need you to understand something. About why I'm really doing this. His heart rate picked up. Okay. When you told me what happened with that woman, with Shanice, I saw something in your eyes. The same thing I see in the mirror sometimes. She took a breath. I told you about my ex. What I didn't tell you was that he didn't just want me to give up my business. He sabotaged it. Stole client lists, spread rumors, tried to destroy everything I'd built because I wouldn't stay small for him. Zara, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I get it. The betrayal. The way it makes you doubt your own judgment. The way it makes you want to lock everything down and never let anyone close again. Her eyes were bright, fierce. So when you asked me why I'm helping you, the truth is, maybe I'm helping myself too. Maybe I need to prove that not everyone is out to destroy you, that sometimes people can just help each other. Min-Jun felt something crack open in his chest. I'm scared, he admitted, of feeling anything again, of trusting anyone again. Me too. But I think, he swallowed hard, I think I'm more scared of not taking the risk. Zara's breath caught. They were close now, though he didn't remember moving. Her hand was on his knee. His was on the back of the couch near her shoulder. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Terrible idea. We should stick to the plan. Keep it professional. Absolutely. Neither of them moved away. Min-Jun's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. A text from his aunt. Looking forward to Thursday. Can't wait to meet her. She must be special. He showed Zara the message. Well, she said, her voice slightly unsteady. I guess we better make sure I'm convincing. Thursday arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. Min-Jun had barely slept the night before, running through scenarios in his head. What if his aunt saw through the deception? What if she asked something they hadn't prepared for? What if— Stop spiraling, Zara said, appearing in his doorway at noon. I can hear you panicking from the main house. He looked up, and his mouth went dry. She was wearing the burgundy dress, the one that had been haunting his dreams. Her hair was styled elegantly, makeup subtle but striking. She looked like money, class, and danger, all wrapped into one devastating package. Is this okay? She asked, doing a small turn. I wasn't sure if I should go formal or casual. You look— Min-Jun's voice failed him. You look perfect. A flush darkened her cheeks. Thanks. You should probably change too. Your aunt will be here in 3 hours. He'd picked out a simple button-down and slacks, but Zara took one look and shook her head. No, to job interview. You need to look comfortable, like you're in your own home. She went to his closet, emerging with a soft gray Henley and dark jeans. This, casual but put together, like you're making an effort but not trying too hard. You've thought about my wardrobe? I notice things, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. It's what I do. He changed while she waited outside, and when he emerged, she circled him critically. Better. Now come on. We need to set up the living room. Make it look like we both live there. They spent the next 2 hours carefully arranging the space. Zara brought over some of her things, a book on African art, her laptop, a sweater she accidentally left on the chair. Min-Jun added subtle touches too, small things that had survived the sale, that made the house feel lived in. At 2:45, Zora pulled him aside. "Last chance to back out," she said. "Are you backing out?" "Hell no. I don't quit." But her hand was trembling slightly in his. "Zara." He squeezed her fingers. "Whatever happens, thank you. Really." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "We should probably practice. Practice. The kiss. Your aunt, she'll expect us to be comfortable with each other, affectionate. And that's how we found ourselves in the bedroom, with Zara in that burgundy dress and Min-Jun's heart trying to pound out of his chest. So how do we—" she'd started, and he'd pulled her close, his hand finding her waist, and said, "Like this." The kiss had started as practice, but the moment their lips met, everything changed. This wasn't acting. This was 3 weeks of denial, of fighting what they both felt, of pretending they were just employer and employee, when they both knew it was so much more. When they broke apart, breathing hard, the doorbell rang. "She's here," Zara whispered, her lips still close to his. "She's early," Min-Jun managed, trying to remember how to form thoughts that weren't about kissing Zara again. They pulled apart, adjusting their clothes, trying to look like two people who hadn't just had their world tilted on its axis. "Ready?" Zara asked, her hand finding his. "No, but let's do this anyway." Aunt Sun-hee stood at the door with a smile that could light up all of Busan and arms full of gift bags. "Min-Jun, ah!" She dropped the bags and pulled him into a fierce hug. "Look at you, too thin. Are you eating?" "I'm fine, Aunt Sun-hee." "We'll see about that." She pulled back, examining his face with the sharp eyes that missed nothing. Then her gaze shifted to Zara, and her smile widened. "And you must be the woman who's stolen my nephew's heart." Zara stepped forward, extending her hand with perfect grace. "Zara Williams, it's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Park. Please, call me Sun-hee." But instead of shaking hands, she pulled Zara into a hug, too. "Welcome to the family." Over his aunt's shoulder, Zara's eyes met Min-Jun's. He could see the question there. "Is this real? Are we really doing this?" He gave a tiny nod, and she relaxed into the embrace. Come in, Sun-hee said, gathering her bags. "I want to see everything. The house, your life together. Tell me how you met." They settled in the living room, Zara sitting close to Min-Jun on the couch, their practiced ease looking natural. Sun-hee sat across from them, and Min-Jun couldn't shake the feeling that she was evaluating every detail. "So," Sun-hee said, accepting the tea Zara had prepared, "how did this happen? After everything." Min-Jun had prepared for this. They'd rehearsed it a dozen times. But sitting here with his aunt's warm eyes on them and Zara's hand in his, the rehearsed story felt wrong. "I was at my lowest point," he said slowly, deciding on a version of the truth. "I had nothing. I'd lost everything because I'd been stupid and trusting and—" "You weren't stupid," Zara interrupted softly. "You loved someone who didn't deserve it. That's not stupidity, that's courage." It wasn't in the script. None of this was in the script. "Zara found me when I had nowhere to go," Min-Jun continued, his throat tight. "She gave me a chance when she had no reason to. She's been my safe place to land." Sun-hee's eyes glistened. "And you, Zara? What made you take a chance on my stubborn nephew?" Zara was quiet for a moment, and Min-Jun realized she was still holding his hand. "I saw someone who'd been broken," she said finally, "but who was still fighting to put himself back together. That takes strength. Real strength." She looked at Min-Jun, and something in her expression made his heart stop. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing his past and started seeing his future. Our future. The room went silent. Sun Hee set down her tea. You love him. It wasn't a question. Zara's hand tightened around Min-Jun's. Yes, she said, and the word sounded like a revelation. Yes, I do. Min-Jun couldn't breathe, because the way she said it, the way she looked at him, that wasn't acting. And you? Sun Hee turned to him. Do you love her? This was the moment. He could stick to the script, say the practiced words, keep the wall up, or he could tell the truth. I was terrified to, Min-Jun said, his voice raw. After Shanice, I swore I'd never let anyone close again. But Zara, she didn't give me a choice. She was patient when I was broken, strong when I was weak. She made me remember who I was before I lost everything. He turned to face her fully. So yes, Aunt Sun Hee, I love her. I'm completely, terrifyingly in love with her. Zara's eyes were wide, her breath coming faster. Well, Sun Hee said, standing up with a satisfied smile, I need to use the restroom. Where is it again? Down the hall, first door on the right, Min-Jun said automatically. The moment she left, Zara turned to him. Min-Jun, I meant it, he said quickly. Every word. This stopped being pretend for me a while ago. I didn't think you'd feel the same way. Are you kidding? Zara's voice cracked. I've been trying not to fall for you since day one. You think I offer jobs to every stranger who collapses in front of my car. You think I spend hours in the garden with all my employees. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I'm scared. The words burst out of her. Because every time I let someone in, they hurt me. Because building walls is easier than risking my heart. Because... She took a shaky breath. Because I'm terrified that this is too good to be true, and I'm going to wake up and you'll be another mistake. Min-Jun cupped her face in his hands. You're not a mistake. This isn't a mistake. How do you know? Because I'm terrified too, and I think maybe that means it's real. They were both leaning in when Sun Hee's voice rang out from down the hall. Min-Jun, you have to show me the garden your grandmother loved so much. They sprang apart, laughing breathlessly. Later, Zara promised, her eyes holding his. Later, he agreed. The rest of the visit passed in a blur. Sun Hee toured the house, exclaiming over the renovations, the garden, the careful way Zara had preserved the traditional elements while adding her own modern touches. You respect this house, Sun Hee said to Zara as they stood in the garden at sunset. That's important. Min-Jun's grandmother would have liked you. I hope so, Zara said. Then, glancing at Min-Jun, I know how much this place means to him. Sun Hee caught the look between them and smiled. You too, she said fondly. You think you're hiding it, but anyone with eyes can see you're mad about each other. Is it that obvious? Min-Jun asked. Painfully, Sun Hee said with a laugh. Which is why I'm going to leave you two alone. I've seen what I needed to see. At the door, she pulled Min-Jun aside. Your parents will want to know about this. About her. His stomach dropped. Aunt Sun Hee, I'll tell them you're doing well, that you've found someone who makes you happy, that you're rebuilding. She squeezed his hand. The rest is up to you, Min-Jun, but don't let pride keep you from your family forever. They miss you, even if they don't know how to say it. After she left, Min-Jun and Zara stood in the hallway, suddenly alone again. So, Zara said. So, that was intense. Yeah. They stood there, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Did you mean it? Zara asked quietly. What you said in there? Or was that just really good acting? Min-Jun closed the distance between them in 2 strides. Does this feel like acting? He murmured, and kissed her. This time there was no hesitation, no pretense, no audience to perform for, just them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zara laughed shakily. Okay, not acting. Definitely not acting. So what now? Min-Jun tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture that came so naturally now. Now we figure it out. Together. No scripts. No pretending. I'm still scared, Zara admitted. Me too. But maybe. She smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that made his chest ache. Maybe scared isn't so bad when you're not alone. Maybe it isn't. They stood there in the hallway of the house that had been his, then wasn't, then somehow became theirs. And Min-Jun realized something. He'd thought losing this house was the worst thing that could happen to him, but if he hadn't lost it, he never would have found her. 3 months later, when Zara officially hired him, not as her cleaner but as her business partner, managing the Korean operations of her import company, he'd tell her that. 6 months later, when his father called and they had their first real conversation in over a year, he'd think it again. A year later, when he asked Zara to marry him in the garden under his grandmother's cherry blossom tree, he'd know it for certain. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you were really looking for all along. Sometimes the house you thought you lost becomes a home in ways you never imagined. And sometimes the woman who saves you turns out to be the one you were meant to save all along. If you enjoyed this story of second chances and unexpected L,